Welcome back to War of the Ring, 2nd edition. We have the elves now besieged by the forces of Sauron, and a little bit of help from Sauron's Dunlanders. And we have an absolute tidal wave of Sauron units on the borders of Gondor. And we also have Sauron and his Uruk-hai massing a lot of troops on the borders of Rohan. All right, well, we're into phase 1 of the next turn, and we're going to recover our action dice and get 2 action cards. We only have 2 action cards left for the Free Peoples, but we're going to be getting 2 more in a moment. All right, let's recover our dice and get our 2 action cards. All right, we're going to be recovering the dice. So, of course, we've used all these dice for the Shadow Player. They've had 3 in the Hunt allocation box. They also get added to their pool. We had 1 here, which we used to move the Fellowship last turn. It comes into the pool, and we have the 3 other dice. So as you can see, a lot more dice for Shadow Player, not as many for Free Peoples. I will leave the bead in here because the Shadow Player must place at least 1 die in here if the Fellowship moved the previous turn. So they're going to have to do that. Okay, we haven't rolled these yet, but now it is time to draw event cards. So let's take a look at the 2 cards we're going to be drawing here for the Free Peoples. Alright, and the 2 cards we drew, the character card and the strategy card. The character card is Mirror of Galadriel, and it's change any 1 unused Free People's character action die result into a Will of the West die. Wow, that's powerful. If the Fellowship is in Lorien, and Lorien is unconquered, also heal 1 corruption point. Oh, that's a good card to have. Unfortunately, Lorien's under siege, but the Fellowship can still move into the stronghold, like I mentioned in the last episode, even if they're under siege, as long as they're not conquered, and they aren't so far. And the other card we have is Wisdom of Elrond. Activate 1 Free People's nation of your choice and advance that nation 1 step on the political track. Ooh, we can get Gondor to war status with that. They're 1 step away from at war, and they're passive, so that could bring some reinforcements, some much needed reinforcements to the Gondor region. Oh man, we're in such trouble. All right, and of course the battle effects on the bottom. The first one, Heroic Death. Play if a Free People's leader or a companion is in the battle. Before you remove casualties inflicted by your opponent's combat roll and leader reroll, you may eliminate 1 of your leaders to cancel 1 hit, or eliminate 1 companion to cancel a number of hits equal to or less than the companion's level. Interesting. And we have Confusion. Every modified die result of a 1 in the Shadow Player's combat roll scores 1 hit against the Shadow Army. Ooh, I like that too. Any such result cannot be rolled again during the Shadow Player's leader reroll. Oh, so the 1s are just insta-kills for the Shadow Player, and they can't even reroll them. 2 very good cards for us. We're probably going to need them. Up next is the Fellowship phase, and I think we've got something to do this time, so let's go ahead and get to that. Alright, the last known location of our Fellowship was in Rivendell. Of course, it's been there the entire game, but we are at 5 now on the track. So the Fellowship is 5 spaces somewhere past Rivendell. And we will decide to, we can decide to reveal them if we want to, or we can just leave them hidden. And I'm not sure what to do. We can reveal them in the stronghold at Lorien, because they can move in and out of besieged strongholds freely without penalty. Or we can just leave them hidden and hope that we can get, if we can get to 7, we can get all the way down here to Helm's Deep with them. Ultimately, we want to get them all the way down to Mordor, onto the Mordor track, and toss the ring into the Crack of Doom. So I think we're going to leave them hidden, and we're not going to change the leadership of the Fellowship. We actually can't, because Strider has got the highest level. He's the only one at level 3. Legolas, Gimli, Boromir are all 2. so they cannot become the leaders of the Fellowship. So that's the Fellowship phase. I was going to declare them in Lorien, but Lorien is under siege. If it falls to the Shadow player, then we're going to have the Fellowship in a location controlled by Shadow player, probably with Nazgul sitting there, and that's going to give them re-rolls on the hunt for the ring, and we really don't want them to do that, so we're not going to declare them there right now. All right, up next is the hunt allocation phase, and this is where the Shadow player must place at least one die into the hunt for the allocation, and they are indeed going to place one die. That leaves them 7 dice to roll for other actions. I have no idea what they're going to do those actions with. Possibly trying to crush the Free Peoples with their massive armies. That's my guess anyway. Alright, well, after the hunt allocation, we get to the action dice rolling. So I'm going to zoom the camera out a bit. We're going to roll the action dice for both the Shadow, the Free Peoples, and see what it is we are able to do for this turn. Alright, it's dice rolling time. We're going to do the 7 dice for the Shadow player first, and of course any eye results go immediately to the hunt for the ring. And we get 2 eye results, and they go directly into the hunt for the ring box. Now there's 3 dice in there. It's going to make it a little tricky for the Fellowship to try and hide if they want to move this time. And the rest they got is muster armies, 4 of those, and 1 character die. Ooh. Alright, let's see what our Free Peoples get. Come on, let's get something good. I don't know what that would be. And we get all kinds of muster. 2 musters, a muster army, and a character die. Ooh, okay. That's our action dice. And up next, we are going to start using them. We can start with the Free Peoples. We can defer to the Shadow. We are going to start with the Free Peoples nation. So let's get to using their action dice. Alright, we only have 4 dice. Oh, and we're going to use one of the muster dice, and we're going to play an event card. And the event card that we are going to play is the event card Wisdom of Elrond. So we are going to spend that die, activate 1 Free People's nation of your choice, and advance that nation 1 step on the political track. Alright, Gondor, it is time for you to go to war status. Let's go to the political track. We're going to activate the Men of Gondor, and then we're going to move them to at war, because that's what this card allows us to do. Excellent stuff. And of course this card is discarded from the game. Let's go to the political track and get Gondor on a war footing. Alright, so the Wisdom of Elrond finally gets through to the thick skulls of the men of Middle-earth and Gondor. They are going to be activated, and they move down to at war. So now we have the elves at war, and we have Gondor at war, which is awesome because it means we can start recruiting troops into the Gondor region. And with the 29 troops of Sauron sitting on the doorstep, I think it's about time we start recruiting as fast as possible if we can. Alright, it's over to the Shadow player now for them to take an action die and see what they're going to do with it. Alright, it is time for the Shadow player. They've got 4, count them, 4 army muster die, 1 character die. They're going to use 1 of their army / muster dice, and they're going to use it to activate 1 army to do 1 attack. If you use the army die to move units, you can move 2 separate armies. If you use it for an attack, you can only move 1 army. So we're going to have 1 army attack for the Shadow player. I wonder where it's going to be. And before I forget, in the last episode, a lot of these cards have to do with combat roll. A combat roll and a leader reroll are 2 separate things. And the bonuses for the combat roll that I had for the Free People's player only applied to the combat roll, not the leader reroll. The leader reroll took out one more unit of Sauron, and that should not have happened because the reroll does not apply to that combat roll ability. So I am going to put one more unit back in here because the Shadow Army would not have lost that unit through a reroll because the card was specifically had to do with combat rolls. Complicated stuff, believe me. We should have one more army there, and we do. So where is the Shadow Army attacking? Not here for the moment. It is somewhere else. So let's get to that attack now and see where the forces of Sauron are going to use that army die to do an attack. All right. The Nazgul with the Southron army, 10 units, is going to wash their way right into Pelargir. Oh yeah, here they come. Can this lonely one regular unit of the Free Peoples hold out? Not likely. Now, are either the Free Peoples or Shadow Player going to play a combat card? And they are not. We, as the Free Peoples, have nothing in our combat ability cards that we can play. They all have to do with companions and or Aragorn / Strider in the fight, and that is not happening anywhere. And so we get right to the resolving of a battle. We're going to roll the dice for the battle. So, oh man, we are rolling 5 dice, obviously, for the Shadow Player. They have 10 units here. We're going to be rolling 1 die for the Free Peoples. Now, the Free Peoples are here in a settlement, in a city, so they get, the Shadow Player must roll a 6 to hit this unit. If they roll anything less than 6, obviously they don't, and they get 1 reroll because they have 1 Nazgul. Let's get to the dice tray and roll up that battle. It's probably going to be short and swift. All right, we have 5 dice, and you can only ever roll a maximum of 5 dice. That's for hunting for the ring and battles. Even though we have 10 units in the Sauron army, you can only roll 5 dice. I've got red dice for them. We have 1 unit, regular unit for the Men of Gondor. They were going to roll 1 die. Now, the Men of Gondor hit on a 5 and 6, and the Shadow Player only hits on a 6, but that's a lot of dice, so we're going to roll them up and see what we get. The Shadow Player gets 1 reroll. And they're going to need it. Oh my goodness, the Man of Gondor just takes a beating to to the Shadow Player. That entire horde of Shadow Players, we didn't roll 1/6. They do have 1 reroll, and they roll a 4. Wow, that is completely unexpected, but awesome. So, that's pretty cool. So, the 1 unit in Pelargir actually does 1 damage to the attacking Shadow Army. Let's go take that casualty off the battlefield. All I can say is, wow, this guy is one tough cookie, and he takes out 1 of the southern units. It is out of here. That is actually pretty incredible. Of course, the Shadow Player is going to press the attack. So what can we do now? Well, we actually have, this was removing casualties. And now the last step of resolving a battle is choose to cease the attack, which they're not going to do, or retreat. Now this unit can retreat. The very good odds that it's going to get destroyed, it is going to actually retreat. And it is going to retreat right here into Osgiliath, joining these guys. Which means this area now is completely free of units, and so they can advance into Pelargir, I'm pretty sure. So let me just check the rules here for a second, and I'll be right back. So yes, indeed. Now, we can move all of the units in here, or part of them. They don't have to move them all. We can leave the Nazgul here, we can move the Nazgul with them, but we are going to move all these units in here. So the entire Southern Army marches in, -1 character now because of that heroic last stand And then they even got to retreat. And the reason I retreated the one regular unit is because we have limited resources as the Free Peoples. We don't have an unlimited supply of reinforcements. So every character we lose, regular or elite, is never coming back in the game. And we only have so many. So by having them, this one retreat Osgiliath, and now it gives us 4 dice to roll if the shadow player decides to attack that one. Okay, and that's going to conclude that battle. Up next is the Fellowship. If they want to use an action die or again pass to the shadow player, they will be, of course, using an action die. Alright, it is time for our Free Peoples to do something. So we are going to use a muster die. We're going to spend that muster die for the Free Peoples, and we're going to muster some units in Gondor. So let's go ahead. Now we can either do one elite unit in one location, we can do a regular unit in 2 different locations, we can do a regular and a leader in 2 different locations, or 2 leaders in 2 different locations. Lots of options. Let's go to Gondor and see what it is we would like to do. Alright, the men of Gondor are shoring up their defenses now. Oh boy. We're going to recruit 2 regular units in 2 different Gondor settlements. Settlements are these square boxes or strongholds or cities. This Osgiliath, though, is a destroyed city. It's just a fortification, so we cannot recruit there. We are going to put 1 regular unit at Minas Tirith and 1 regular unit here at Dol Amroth, because I don't like the southern army just marching in. And this is worth 2 points, Dol Amroth. So we're trying to shore up our defenses here a little bit. Maybe it's going to be a little bit too late. I don't know. Up next now, of course, is the shadow player again. Oh my god, he has so many armies. He has lots of options. Let's see what he wants to do. And I think that's going to be the last turn for our episode. I'll have to check the time. And I should also mention that the shadow player has taken Pelargir. It is worth 1 victory point, which means the shadow player moves to 1 on the victory point track. Now remember, if this gets to 10 at the end of an entire turn, shadow player wins a military victory. So they are sitting at 1 for taking Pelargir. What are they going to do? Well, they are going to play a army muster die to use a 1 attack for 1 army. All right, let's go back to the board, and we're going to find out where the forces of Shadow are going to attack this time, and also where they're going to attack, and then if either side wants to play cards. Alright, it is time for the forces with 2 Nazgul, an elite, and 2, 4, 6, 8 units here to attack Osgiliath, where we've got Faramir and his rangers, and he's right there, assuming the leader is Faramir, and we have an elite and 3 regulars. So it's going to be a dust-up. The Free Peoples are opting not to play a card because we can't. We don't have it. All has to do with companions. All of our cards. Heroic Death. Oh, if we have a leader. Okay, we can play a card if we want to. The other 2 have to do with companions. I'm going to have to read that over, but the shadow player is indeed playing a card. So we may play our Heroic Death card. Shadow player is definitely going to be playing one. So I'm going to read that over, and we're going to come back, and we're going to look at that card if we play it, and then we're going to get into the battle. So we're going to have the shadow player obviously rolling 5 dice. Free People's going to be rolling 4 with 1 reroll. Shadow player gets 2 rerolls. Ooh, it's going to be ugly. Alright, indeed we are going to play Heroic Death. And it's going to play if the Free People's leader or a companion is in the battle. We do have a Free People's leader in Osgiliath, so we're going to be playing this card. And it's before you remove casualties inflicted by your opponent's combat roll and leader reroll, you may eliminate one of your leaders to cancel 1 hit. So normally leaders just give you rerolls. You can't take them as casualties, but Heroic Death lets us take that leader as 1 casualty, and we don't have companions in Osgiliath, so the last part's not going to apply. Now the shadow player is also going to be playing a card. Oh man. And they are going to be playing this one, which is Relentless Assault. It says, before the combat roll, you may inflict and apply up to 2 hits against your units. So they self-inflicted because of this Relentless Assault. Add 1 to all dice on your combat roll for each hit you inflicted. So that's combat roll, not leader reroll. Got to remember that, just the combat roll. So we are going to, normally because they're in a fortification, it's going to take the shadow player a roll of a 6 to perform a hit. They're going to take 2 hits to their units. So they're going to inflict wounds on a 4, 5, 6. So let's go ahead and take them 2 units off right now. It's a Relentless Assault. Now we're going to lose 2 units as the Sauron player, but he's got a lot. So he's not too concerned. He's more concerned about wiping out as many Gondor units as he can. So he's going to hope now that he's going to be rolling 5 dice on the combat roll he wants. He can hit on a 4, 5, 6 now because he gets +2. And the Free People's Gondor is going to be hitting on a 5 and 6. So let's get to the dice tray and roll it up. All right, let the carnage begin. 5 dice for the shadow player hitting on a 4, 5, 6, and 4 dice for the Free People's hitting on a 5 or a 6. All right, give them a good shake, and we're going to see what happens in Osgiliath. And not much for the shadow player. So the shadow player got 2 hits because they hit on a 4, 5, 6 on the combat roll, not on the reroll. The reroll, they are going to need 6s. And the Free People's hit on a 5. Oh, what am I doing? This is the hit for the shadow player. Only 1. Wow, that was pretty pathetic. They wasted a bunch of troops there. And the Free People's did 1 hit to the shadow player because the 4 does not hit. So 1 hit aside, the Free Peoples get a reroll because of their leader. So let's see what they get on the reroll. They get a 4, so those do not hit. And we have 2 Nazgul. Now these have to be 6s. We can reroll up to as many leaders, and they get a 5 and a 2, so no hit. So we just end up with 1 hit apiece. And the Free Peoples are going to decide to eliminate their leader because of our card we played. And the shadow player is going to have to take 1 unit away. So let's get to the board and make it happen. All right, looks like Faramir dies protecting Osgiliath from the swarm of Sauron units. The leader is eliminated out of the game, never to return as a reinforcement. And we have to lose 1 more Sauron unit. Wow, that was not so good for the Sauron. Or we could have downgraded an elite to a regular, but they decided not to do that. Okay, so we get to removing casualties. Now the shadow player is going to continue the assault. They want to attack again, but the Free Peoples are going to retreat. They don't lose any units. They're going to retreat back to Minas Tirith. So just picture that horse ride back from Osgiliath from the movies as the units come back from Osgiliath to the White City. And they have now a lot of units there, which is good because it's a 2-point place. They've got 2, 4, 6, 8. They have 9 units there now. And yes, the forces of Sauron will move right into Osgiliath with all of these units, which they have 6 now, which is less than the 9 or 10 they started out with on the borders of Minas Tirith. And I do believe that that's going to be the end of our episode for today. So back the camera out. I'm going to recap, and that's going to be it. And that's going to conclude our episode for today. Well, we have with quite a dust-up going on here in Gondor. They're at war now. They can recruit units. The shadow player has captured 1 settlement, the city of Pelargir, for 1 victory point towards a military victory. We still have Sauron, who's just sitting there looking across into the Fords of Isen, has not attacked yet. They still have 3 dice left to play. When we continue in our next episode, we still have the elves under siege in Lorien. We have the Fellowship still hidden, last known location Rivendell. Gandalf and Pippin here. Looks like they're trying to make their way to Minas Tirith. Yeah, so things are heating up pretty good. It's going to be pretty tough, though, for the Sauron player to break through that kind of defense. But we'll see what happens. So thanks so much for watching along. Thanks for your comments, subscriptions, likes. Really appreciate it. This is War of the Ring, 2nd edition, and the war is on. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.